Hello, everybody. I'm Tessa Shepperson, and I'm here today with Steve Barnes, who is an Associate Director of Hamilton Fraser, and he's going to talk us through some of the issues that have arisen with the coronavirus situation and the lockdown. So, welcome, Steve.
Hi, Tessa. Thanks very much for the invite today.
So, we've got a PowerPoint presentation here. Shall we move through it?
Yeah, if it's okay. As you rightly said, I'm the Associate Director in charge of the property division at Hamilton Fraser. Been working obviously with many landlord associations and landlords over the past 20 years to offer bespoke products under our Total Landlord Insurance brand.
Hmm.
Um, And in addition to that, we also, not just our CMP and PRS, but our insurance division also do bespoke policy, which includes professional indemnity for letting agents.
Can
Um,
you quickly say that you gave some initials? Sometimes people don't always know what those mean. So, CMP,
yeah,
that's.
yeah, yeah. We offer like client money protection through our client money protect policy,
Hmm.
um, which is a government scheme where the letting agents join, and any sort of rental income or fees that they collect on behalf of the landlord from the tenants. If obviously the letting agents was to go insolvent or just disappear or fraudulent or whatever, then the
it-
client money protection is there to help the landlords and the tenants. Um, Property Redress Scheme, PRS, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's a membership organisation that helps deal with complaints. So again, letting agents sign up, and if their landlords or tenants have got any issues, then it's an independent body that will obviously, deal with and look at the complaints and make awards based on the evidence that's been provided.
so, I mean, for both of those particular schemes, it is mandatory that letting agents should join one of them, and Hamilton Fraser is one of the organisations that provide those schemes for agents.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think as a business, we also, as you know, Tessa, we deal with deposit protections via my deposits as well.
Hmm.
Um, and the way the whole company is set up, originally it started off as an insurance company, and I remember back in 1988 when we dealt with about 1,000, 2,000 landlords, and we helped, to protect and interact and support their needs. And now across all the brands that you've mentioned, as well as Landlord Action, HF Assist, Ohm, we're now dealing and supporting over 350,000 landlords. And, and hopefully, with the way things are going, and Ohm looks like it's going to take off,
Yeah,
that will increase. Over the next sort of six months to a year.
that's good. We do have a separate presentation on Ohm. So we don't need to talk about that here because we
No,
got
which
a
is
separate one on that. So
yeah,
let's move on, shall we?
yeah. I mean, really, I think we're looking at the impact since the start of lockdown and what it really means. Initially on the insurance side for people and how this is affecting them financially. So, I mean, there was a recent survey done where about 75% of landlords have been contacted by the tenants saying they'll be struggling to pay rent. Now, I don't know what your views are on it, Tessa, but I've spoken since lockdown to over 300 landlords, and fingers crossed, so far, I've not been given that sort of feedback. Most landlords are saying, well, actually, they're speaking with their tenants, and they're either fortunate enough to be able to work from home, they've been furloughed, so they're receiving 80%. Um, or at the moment, they are still financially being able to pay for it. So I think
Mm.
the government with the Coronas Act 2020, where initially obviously any ongoing suspensions they suspended by 90 days. And then obviously now they're looking to extend that until obviously September 2020.
Mm.
Um, and the government are looking at other ways to obviously try and assist the tenants and everything else. I mean, one of the things that does make me laugh a little bit is the mortgage holiday for landlords, because that's where sort of tenants, I think, initially started calling their landlords, thinking, well, hold on, if you're getting a mortgage holiday, why aren't we? Until you explain to them you've still got to pay the interest back. And
Well,
ultimately,
it's not that the landlords aren't going to have to pay that mortgage. It's just that they defer the payments. They're going to end up paying more in the end.
exactly, and I think that's, for me, and this is what obviously the landlords that I've spoken to have been doing. If a tenant is in that position where, they physically can't do it, then it's as much the onus on the tenant to prove it, because if a tenant can't prove it, Tessa, then the landlord won't be getting a mortgage holiday.
Yeah.
And I noticed, and again, I don't know, different authorities work different ways, but local authorities have tried to make something like £500 million available to fund households experiencing financial hardship. So hopefully, with what the government are trying to do to keep things going, some of that money will filter down to our landlords' tenants, and help them through this difficult times.
Well, it is particularly important that tenants are able to pay their rent because they need to have a secure place to live
Yes.
during this pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the other thing, obviously, with all these, with the act that's come into force, it has meant, from what we've seen, the majority of insurance companies that offered rent guarantee, literally overnight just stopped asking or stopped doing any new policies.
Yes, I
Uh,
saw that. What's Hamilton Fraser's take on that?
well. To be honest, we were with one of the companies that actually stopped doing the rent guarantee. However, they're still offering, people that have had continuous policies, they're still offering the renewals. But as per the previous slide, the rules still sort of go back to, you can't actually enforce anything until September.
Yeah.
Um, so at the end of the day, what, and again, you probably know a lot more than me, Tessa, what the courts are trying to say to everybody is, has the landlord engaged as much with the tenant? Have they tried to mediate with the tenant? Have they tried to look at an agreement? Um, and obviously, therefore, hopefully, not having to issue the actual possession.
Mm.
Um, and I think, as I look on the next slide, mediation is, we're of the understanding, and obviously I appreciate in the next weeks or months this could change, that courts will not look favourably upon people that have not tried some form of mediation.
Yeah.
And the ones that have will probably get further up and quicker up the possession, service, than the ones that have done nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to bring in a pre-action protocol, because there has been for a long time a pre-action protocol for social landlords, and part of that is mediation, and they are looking to bring that in. I think they're working on it at the moment, a pre-action protocol for private sector landlords,
Yeah.
and that will probably involve a requirement that they try and sort things out. And if they have followed a mediation service such as the PRS, then that should qualify landlords if it has been unsuccessful
Yeah, I mean
to, to move it to move it further, down the litigation route.
yeah, I mean that's what we're looking at. I mean, hopefully you'll have the landlords out there will have some tenants that will be open and honest, and you can come to a mutual agreement. Um, but unfortunately, or fortunately, should I say, for the property redress scheme, but unfortunately for some landlords, our mediation service is already getting quite a lot of inquiries and sort of call to arms to help people action stuff.
Mm.
Um, so, at least with the people using that, as you've said, I think that will go a long way for the courts to see that landlord has done absolutely everything in their power, to try and alleviate the issues, keep the tenant in their property. But if all else fails, then obviously we have to go to the last route. Unfortunately.
What sort of cost is it for the property redress scheme?
I think. I mean, I'm not an expert on that. I know initially, to obviously sort of try and get the ball rolling and try and have that initial chat and come to an agreement. I think it's in the region of about £120 plus VAT.
Mm,
Um, but obviously, there could be, it could be a bit more long-winded, and there is a maximum of 3 steps before it would then go to the sort of the courts.
yeah,
Step two then costs £270 plus VAT, and step three is £150 plus VAT. So I think it's just getting all the evidence ready. That you have physically done everything possible. PRS team have gone through everything. The mediator's gone through everything with both the landlord and the tenant. And if at that stage, obviously, nothing can be done, then yeah, possession come September
yeah,
would be the next step.
yeah. So it's a good scheme to have launched at this time. Very useful.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the property redress scheme are used to dealing or mediating between letting agents and landlords and letting agents and tenants. So it's something that they're fully qualified to do. They've been doing it for many years,
Mm,
and we've obviously extended it in these difficult times to tenants and landlords in terms of the rent as well.
yeah, excellent.
Brilliant. Right. I mean, I think we come on to something that a lot of landlords and even calls that we're having with various insurers at the moment is the unoccupancy of properties, due to the fact that it's a lot harder to show people around and get people in. Um, what we are finding, Tessa, is if a property was unoccupied before lockdown, a lot of insurers are keeping to the original rules where they'll give full cover up to 30 days, but beyond that, um, they're following their normal guidelines. Um, Under the total landlord insurance umbrella, we've managed to obviously get insurers to provide cover up to 90 days,
Uh-huh.
which is something that we've always managed to do
Mm,
under our Premier policy. But obviously, even after that 90 days with us and 30 days with some other companies, your cover will probably be restricted, which is the main perils, which will be fire, lightning, explosion, aircraft, smoke damage, and aircraft damage. So I do think it's important that people do speak to their individual insurers, because obviously they've got to make sure their own policy is adequate. Um, and even to be fair, with the companies that we deal with, the people that are keeping us informed of what's going on. So these are people the COVID crisis.
mhm.
Um, Insurers are being a bit more flexible. They're not just being carte blanche. Yes, you can do exactly the same as what someone that's had a property unoccupied after. Um, and obviously, they're still asking that properties are inspected. When a tenant moves in, and then obviously at least every 6 months thereafter. And obviously, on the unoccupied properties, really you should be going there sort of every 7 days
Mm.
to inspect the properties.
I mean,
Um,
I think that will be acceptable under the lockdown rules, because if the property is empty, then there won't be a social distancing issue.
it,
And
it, it,
if it's necessary for someone to inspect the property for insurance purposes, I can't see that that could cause a problem with anyone.
Yeah, I mean, what again? What we're trying to say to our people, our clients, is, ultimately, if you have a property that's 30 miles away, and previously you've not used a letting agent to do your inspections, and it's a little bit outside of reasonable amounts of travel, which hopefully will change over the coming weeks, then
Mm.
again, don't leave it, notify your insurers of the situation, and work with them to come up with a solution that buys you a little bit more time. So hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to travel that little bit further, and you'll be able to carry on doing these inspections.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important message for landlords here is that you must keep your insurers informed of what is happening.
Yes.
It's your duty to let them know, because if you don't let them know, that could prejudice your right to make a claim.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the things that we're saying to people is, when you go to your properties, to take pictures that are date stamped on one of your smart devices. Obviously, then keep a clear written report of when you've been, what you've done. If there was no defects, right, no defects or anything, or if there is defects, then obviously see whether you can get those fixed. I mean, luckily enough, we're not in the winter periods at the moment, because normally during the winter periods you have to leave the heating on to a certain temperature. But hopefully the sun stays out, and that won't be necessary at the moment. But yeah, the unoccupied side at the moment is something that insurers are being more receptive than they would normally. But as I said, I can only really talk about the companies that we deal with. But I would stress to people, don't just take it for granted. Be speaking to your insurer, and making sure that you are, as protected as best you can be during this period.
And, the first thing to do, I suppose, is to check in your policy and see how long,
Yes.
whether it's 90 days or 30 days, and make sure you contact your insurance company before that period is up and warn them that, it is going to remain unoccupied, and ask them if they could give you an extension.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way. If you do it before, I think, to me, from an insurer's perspective, it proves the fact that you've understood the policy and you're being proactive. And when you're proactive, it's amazing how much more proactive an insurer will be towards you. So
Yeah.
yes, definitely do that. And then we obviously get onto the bit more tricky situation
Yeah.
of maintenance inspections or general inspections. Again, like I said, I mean, at the moment, we're doing webinars as opposed to doing live events at the moment. So really, there's nothing stopping us doing virtual tours of properties if
Can
we
I just
can't.
ask, in your policies, in your insurance policies, is there a requirement for landlords to do regular inspections? Because I think some insurers do require that.
Yes, I mean, realistically, what we look for in this sort of situation is, you should go there after a month after the person's been in the property to make sure that they've settled in. Um, Ideally, it would be good to visit every 3 months, but again, some tenancy agreements will say, after that first visit, they've got a duty to have peace and everything else,
Yeah.
and it might be 6 months. So we're not strict if the agreement clearly says, you can't inspect it every week, which we understand. Every 3 to 6 months is classed as a reasonable period. Then that's what most policies will follow. They'll say, what's reasonably possible, in conjunction with your assured short hold tenancy, and 3 and 6 months inspections are not unreasonable. And at the end of the day, especially where people don't, personally, I wouldn't be overly keen with somebody coming around my house at the moment, but that's just me. But that's why, again, with all the smart devices that we've got, if you've got a good relationship with your tenant and your tenant doesn't want you visiting, by just going round with the iPad or whatever other smart device you've got around the property, that you can see, that the place is clean, the place is tidy,
Yeah.
and everything else. And then you've got record that, and keep it, so that you can prove that whilst you couldn't get to the property, especially if they're self-isolating,
Yeah.
and if you can get to the property, then you just got to make sure you have as much protective clothing as possible. I mean, gloves are essential, because if you're touching any doors to open any doors,
Yeah.
make sure that you've got that, and make sure you're following the government social distancing rules.
And hand washing.
Yes, I mean, to be fair, I mean, anything like this, you should, I know it sounds a bit silly, but you should be having hand sanitizer, liquids with you at all times. So as you enter the property, you should be doing it. If you can wash your hands whilst you're walking around the property, great. But if not, every so many minutes, you should be putting the stuff on your hands. Obviously, if you've got, once you put the gloves on, that's a little bit different. But as you go to leave the property, make sure that you've washed your hands, put some more sanitizer on, for the protection of both yourself, but obviously just as importantly, your tenants.
And keep a record of everything that you do. That is so important, because if you haven't got a record of it, evidentially it's like it never happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and when a tenant, if a tenant, contacts you about a problem, I'd always ask the tenant to follow that up in writing and
Yep.
do that as a standard. And the reason why I say that is when you get, and I've seen it unfortunately over the years where you get the slips, trips, and falls, and the tenant will say, well, the carpet was frayed and I tripped over it. It's the landlord's fault. And it's like, well, it's not the landlord's fault. You've got a duty to keep your landlord informed of any issues that could cause safety, and you need to let them know immediately to give them obviously a chance to rectify it.
It's a good idea also, if you are a landlord, every time you contact your tenants, to say to them, are there any problems with the property? Is there any item of disrepair? Is there anything that needs some work doing? And keep a record of the answer.
Yeah, keep a record of the answer, and also once you've done that, email the tenant
Yeah.
and say, thank you very much for allowing me to visit the property today. This is what we discussed. If anything on that you would like to add to, then feel free to email me back. And then you've got something in writing with a valid address for that person that they would have received it. And it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about protecting yourself, and doing these, these basic things will help you in the event of a tenant obviously trying to make a claim against you.
And
The, the,
the same thing applies if they're going around the property with sort of FaceTime showing it to you, you know,
yeah,
a record of what you see and what you discuss,
yes,
and then you can show later that you did the best you could.
yeah, and I think from an insurance perspective, that's going to be, from our insurance perspective, it's definitely going to be more than adequate, because you've shown that even when you can't get to a property or someone's self-isolating, that you are still doing all you can to make sure your property is safe, and you're having that conversation with the tenant to make sure that property is safe. I mean, at the moment, and again, I think everything comes down to what the government would class as vital work or vital repairs. So obviously, a gas safety inspection is still vital. But if you're going to instruct an engineer, you need to make sure that engineer's got the proper protective equipment. And no different to you visiting the property, that they're constantly washing their hands or sanitizing their hands whilst they're in the property. Um, and if you leave, say, a washing machine in the property as part of your let, and that washing machine is broken or leaking, then that is still, according to the government, an essential piece of work or repair or replacement that needs doing. No different to a leaking roof, or if a window's broken, because obviously that
Mm.
could affect security. So, you know, you've obviously got to speak to the tenants, and there'll be some things that you'll say, well, actually, yes, that'll be a nice to do, but that's not going to affect your health, safety, or your enjoyment of the property. But anything that affects the health, the safety, or the security of the person, you've still got a duty to do all you can to make sure that they're safe during this period.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. And then this is something that we always try and stress to our landlords in terms of a tenant referencing. Um, it's surprising how many landlords out there still don't reference people. And I understand, speaking to many landlords, that they've been doing it for so long that they feel they can get quite a good gauge for the person and everything else. But as we're going to come into the next 12 months, that nobody has got a clue how this is going to affect us. Once the furloughing ends, unfortunately, there's rumours. Obviously, there might be job losses.
Yeah.
So at this stage, I think it's more important than ever to get a tenant reference done. And what you'll find with whether it's a rent guarantee policy you're looking to purchase going forward when they come back on the market, or whether it's a more bespoke policy, you need to make sure that referencing is a 4-point check. A basic reference is not good enough for any insurance policy out there.
I think
So
tenant referencing is one of the most important things, because having a good tenant in a property is just so important. And it makes my blood run cold when I hear of landlords who don't do that. It's just so important.
yeah, I mean, as I said, under the total landlord insurance premier policy, albeit probably won't be able to use it until sort of September time, through obviously our partner and sister company Landlord Action. If you've done that 4-point check, and the person's on the usual assured short hold tenancy,
Hmm.
um, Landlord Action will help you and issue the Section 8 notice.
Well, I mean,
Um,
you can issue the notice now. It's just that you
yes,
can't
yeah,
make. I mean, you can
yeah,
issue proceedings. It's just that they won't go anywhere at the moment in the court. They just sit there in the court office. But
yeah,
I mean, you can certainly serve it and
yeah,
your
yeah,
proceedings.
yeah. And I think, I mean, you know as well as myself, Tessa. Obviously, the thing is, if you don't get that Section 8 right, we both know that the courts are quite quick to send you away, and it could take you another 3 months to get back. So
You do need
again,
to be careful. I mean, there is a case that says that the courts can be forgiving in certain circumstances, but quite frankly, it's best not to risk it because it's going to cause a delay, no
yes,
matter what. So you want to have a proper notice. So I
yeah.
go for that.
Yeah, but as I said, as we discussed earlier, before obviously we get to that sort of Section 8 notice, in the current times, you definitely need to look at mediation
Yep.
first, because that's also one of the questions that Landlord Action will ask, is to
Mm,
say, well, what have you done to get to this point? Because it's no good us issuing this for you, and then in September it gets batted back because you haven't done the other
yeah.
parts that the government are asking you to do. So. Yeah, it's interesting times for everybody, but personally, the tenant referencing is going to be something in these worrying times ahead that is going to be more important than ever.
Yeah. I mean, I think landlords always need to remember that con men are always with us, and it's their job to appear, um, to appear to be dependable, credible people.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they wouldn't be a successful con man. So you have to bear that in mind, and you always need to do your checking. I mean, I would say that people need to do more than that. They need to check people out on social media. Um, they need to do referencing. And you've got that there, employers reference,
yes, yeah, yeah,
bank references just to check that they got a bank account, 3 months bank statements, all of these things. They're just so important.
yeah. And ultimately, it's protecting you as a landlord. So
Yeah,
it is something that you can't stress enough. The importance of it.
yeah.
And I think obviously, today we've mentioned, and obviously Matt Hooker will be doing one of your presentations on home.
Hmm.
Um, but as I said, under the Hamilton Fraser umbrella, um, we are very much geared towards the letting industry, and every product that we offer is there to assist landlords and tenants, um, to hopefully have an enjoyable, you know, agreement going forward.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps we ought to mention that in the conference software there is a link to the main Hamilton Fraser website on every page. And if you go to the main Hamilton Fraser website and click at the top, the drop down menu on property, then that is where people will find links to all of your services.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're right, Tessa. I think it's probably the best place to go because you get everything under one umbrella. Whereas obviously we have got, you'll be directed to the various websites that are there, but you can always go back to that main site for information. And then the other thing with the main site, obviously there is information around, the do's and don'ts for things like insurance and helpful guides around the other products and services that we offer.
So that's hamiltonfraser.co.uk. And there's also an inquiries email and a telephone number as well that people can ring.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in this day and age, we still find that a lot of people preferred method of contact is the telephone, and we've got advisors on hand, ready to take your calls.
Okay, and is that the 02039445255 number?
We've got various numbers, but yeah, that'll be the main number. But if you go on the website and you want a Pacific department, then you can obviously find the numbers on
Okay.
those websites. Yeah.
Okay, but you're open for business.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's fingers crossed. It's been busier than ever, and we're here to support our landlords.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
No, thank you, and I appreciate your time, and look forward to hearing the rest of the conference.
Okay then. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Tessa.
Okay, right. That's the end of. It's still recording, but that's the end of the presentation. I think that went okay.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I hope I didn't interfere too much, but
I think to be honest with you, it makes it so much easier doing it the way you've just done it, because it just, instead of being robotic,
yeah.
which is how it comes across, it just breaks it up and it makes it so much easier. So no, for me personally, I much prefer that approach.
Okay, well, I think insurance is a very important product for landlords. So I think that it's good that we've got something that that will help them.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, I'll close down now then. Thanks for this, and I'll do a bit of editing, not a lot, just chop out the beginning and the end bits.
Yep.
And I'll let you review it. Hopefully there won't be anything to take out, and then I can just load it straight up to the software.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like a copy, but I don't think they'll. I'll watch it back, or listen to it back. But from my point of view, everything in there is factual, so quite happy for that to go live, Tessa.
Okay, and the other thing I need to ask you is, would you like to attend the conference? Shall I add you to the delegates who are being imported into the conference software? Because I'm happy to give any Hamilton Fraser employees free access to the conference. Is that something you'd like?
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I've listened to Matt's, I was quite, as I said, it was a very good one. So yeah, if you could send me an invite, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, what I'm doing is, the people who want to go, I'm actually going to. You'll be imported into the conference software, and then you should get emails, sort of telling you to go and sign up for the talks, and then you do that, and then on the day you go and log in and listen to the various talks.
Yeah.
So I'll get you signed up for that.
Excellent. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Tessa.
Okay, then I'll close down now.
All right. Speak soon. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.